Please welcome Kate. Hi, everyone. Just wanted to welcome Casey Westbrook. Please welcome her. Casey has her Master of Science in Kinesiology, and she's a certified strength and conditioning specialist, a mountain biking coach. She's PMBIA certified and an all-around baddie. Welcome, Casey.
Thanks, Marissa. Awesome. I'm super stoked you all are here. I'm gonna share PowerPoint with y'all. It's coming up. Let's make it big. Sweet. Yeah, so the reason we're all here, can hopefully see that? Yeah, it says we can see it. Okay.
If you guys can't see it, just drop it in the chat.
Yeah, please drop it in the chat. Yeah. Yeah, so we're here for these reasons. Get stronger, play harder, adventure longer. Here's what we're going to cover today. So today's agenda, ultimately, we're going to talk about, who am I? What's my story? How did I get to where I am today? And then what is strength and conditioning? So I'm a strength and conditioning coach, and that's the work that I do. So what is that? Taking care of your most important piece of gear. We all have gear for our sports. So what's the most important one? You can go ahead and throw a guess, but how do we take care of that one? Why should we strength train? I love to cover some things we may have learned about strength training that may not be true. And then ultimately, one of the big things I'd like you to take away today is like, how do you do this? Like, how should we strength train? Like do more gym type things that would translate to us having more fun outside and being able to play for many, many years to come. And then talk about like a few logistics in like a gym setting. Some things I hear like, what? There's so much going on in the gym. Like, what are those things? And then a big thing I hear, especially from women, is that we get a little bit of gym anxiety. It can get a little bro-y in there. So how do we kind of like approach being in a gym? So that's what we're talking about today. Ultimately, I want you to come away understanding why strength training is important for us. And then I want you to have like an outline of how you can get started with this. And then I'd love to finish by answering any of your questions. So let's get into it. So I grew up my whole life running. I was a runner. I ran from the age of like 8 till I was 24. And then at the age of 24, I ran an ultra marathon. But 2 weeks before, I actually got injured and ended up running on my injury anyway. But that injury left me unable to run for a few years, which if you've ever been injured from your sport, you know how challenging and kind of like life altering that is when you can't do this thing that you love and spend all your time doing. During that time, I was in my master's. I became a strength and conditioning coach, ultimately became a mountain biking coach, learned a ton about strength training and why it's important. And now I'm a mountain biker. That's my main sport. And I'm running again after 8 years of not running. Yay. But ultimately, the biggest takeaway from, my years as a runner, I never did any strength training. And that definitely would have helped either minimize the injury that I did sustain or probably like eliminate it in the first place if I had been strength training. So I'm really passionate about getting women to lift heavy weights so that hopefully we can keep playing outside for longer, plus some other benefits around that. So what is strength and conditioning? It's a long word, a long phrase, but ultimately what it boils down to for me and how I think about it is this is training that supports you as an athlete in your sport. So that could be a bunch of different things. We obviously have elite level athletes who get paid and are in high levels at their sport. Their strength and conditioning makes it so that they can be successful in their job where they are making money. And then we have people more like us we're like the everyday athlete, we're recreational athlete. Our goal is we want to be able to play our sport, but we also just live normal lives and we want to function in our daily life. So we want to play hard, but also function well in the day-to-day. So strength and conditioning should meet all of our goals, whatever that is. Here are the components. These are the main components that I work with people on. So many of us do some sort of endurance sport. So the first component for us is going to be some sort of conditioning. I find that most of the athletes that I work with do a really good job at this part. We're out there riding our bike, running, like doing our endurance sport really well.
Skiing.
Yeah, skiing, we're doing it. The second piece, which is really crucial, is the strength training piece, which is just lifting heavy things. We can do it in specific ways that are going to benefit us, but ultimately pick something up, put it down in special ways. And then the third piece, which I think is really crucial for us as recreational or outdoor athletes, is mobility. And we'll talk about what these things are and how to do them. So conditioning, strength training, and mobility. And then these are some of the smaller pieces, but that I think are also really crucial for us. We have things like plyometrics. These are jumping. So anything where you're jumping, of course, box jumps are an example, hopping side to side. There are so many examples of ways we can incorporate plyometrics. This is super complementary to us as outdoor athletes because most of our sports are more endurance based. We're doing something for 2 to 5 minutes and beyond. So plyometrics is the other component of that, where when we need to be powerful, quick, poppy, which we all have moments in our sport where we need to do that, plyometrics fills that gap that our endurance training doesn't. Agility, we need to be agile. I think of skiing, snowboarding, very agility based. Mountain biking, a lot of like change of direction and being able to react quickly. That is the intention behind agility. So are you able to react when something in the environment comes up to you and you need to make a shift in direction? Then we have reaction and coordination. I love playing games with like balls, catching in different positions. Here I have my client and we're in a plank and we're catching this little blue ball in a plank position. And then balance, which many of us can probably agree that balance is super crucial for our sports, because when we're outside, we are not on even terrain pretty much ever. So ultimately, those are the main components of strength training, and I'll get into like, how do we do it a little bit later. I first want to make the case for like, why is this important? So take care of your most important piece of gear. When I think about the way I take care of my gear, like it's mountain bike, the tail end of mountain biking season, but before every ride, I'm making sure that my chain is lubed, like there's air in my tires, I'm checking my shocks, making sure they're at the right pressure, like are all of my bolts in place? Is anything going to fall off during this ride? And I think we do that a lot with all of our gear, right? Like we're making sure like our skis are in good condition. Like when we're climbing, is our harness, our ropes, like is everything in good condition? We do this for our gear, and our body is the same. But I would argue like our body is the most important piece of our gear, because if that thing's not working, we're probably not gonna be able to do our sport. Probably not. So we take care of our gear. Like, why don't we take care of our body in the same way? Like, why don't we do these things for our body? I'm sure like we have our reasons, but why don't we? So why strength train when I can be playing?
I had that question when I first started.
Yeah. Like, why don't I think I struggle with this battle, especially when it's like peak season, like, and the conditions are good. Like, why don't I just go out and like ride when the dirt's good? Or like when it's like a epic day on the mountain, like why not just go ski? There's ways we can make this work with those epic days, but ultimately, like one of the big reasons for strength training is it improves our efficiency. So for mountain biking, it's like each pedal stroke is like stronger. When we're skiing, each of our movements is so much stronger because we're using our muscles synergistically, because they've all been strengthened in this way. And ultimately what this looks like is it takes less energy for us to do the same amount of work, which for me, if I'm using less energy each minute, that means I have more minutes to be out there. Yeah, ultimately we can go further and longer. Second piece is like injury prevention. So I think this is a big piece. As much as I try to avoid falling and crashing, it's a reality in our sports is we fall, we crash, like it happens. But what strength training does is it improves our bone density. We just have stronger bones. We have stronger tendons. Bigger muscles are just squishier than bones. So when we fall on them, we have like some cushion. Much like obviously it's uncomfortable, but much better than like falling hard on our bones. And then stronger ligaments. So all of these pieces that hold us together are stronger. So we can take crashes better. We just reduce our risk of injury. Can we totally eliminate it? Definitely not. But can we make that risk a little bit lower? 100%. And then lower risk of overuse injury or injuries due to poor mechanics because we are practicing moving in these really efficient ways that are like biomechanically advantageous. So if I'm lunging really well, I'm going to run better. I'm going to hike better. I'm going to ski better. Because I'm using things the way they were designed to be used. And then this piece is really near and dear to my heart. Is the longevity piece. So the training that you do in the gym is 100% going to have an impact on your life right now, like wherever you are. But I think the biggest return on investment doesn't come until we're in our 80s. And I've talked to so many women who are like, I'm so pumped on my sport now. And we don't have, like, here in Bend, we have some examples of women in their 70s and 80s still crushing it. We don't have that many examples.
True.
And I would like, I think so many of us want to, like, no one's like, oh, when I'm 60, like, I'm gonna hang up the skis and not do that anymore. Like most of us, like, we love what we do and we want to keep doing it for a long time. Maybe it's gonna look different, but I still want to be riding my bike in some capacity and like outside playing, hiking, like doing all of the really fun things that I do for a long time. And strength training is a big piece of that. So yeah, longevity and health. I mean, you've probably heard this, but weightlifting, strength training in particular, increases our bone density as women. As soon as we hit menopause, we have a lot harder time maintaining and depositing our bone. So osteoporosis, osteopenia are really big challenges as we age. The strength training we do before menopause has a huge impact on our bone density later in life. Muscle mass, it gets harder to put on muscle mass as we get older, and it's one of the biggest things that can help reduce injury risk when we get older. So the more we can build up our muscle now, the easier it is to maintain. Independence, many of us have had older folks in our lives or do now, and we see what can happen when we get older. Some of us have like really amazing examples of like really independent people in their 80s, 90s and beyond. And then some of us have other examples of where it gets more challenging to be independent if we're not maintaining our health through these years. Strength training also improves our heart health, which is so cool because many of us thought, oh, it's just cardio that is good for our heart health, but just lifting weights, great for your heart. Mental health, confidence. That's one of the biggest things I personally have experienced is trusting myself and my body so much more being a strong woman. And then ultimately more years riding, playing, like doing whatever you want. So longevity is a huge factor here. Okay, let's talk about some myths. Drop like a heart in the chat if you've ever heard this. Strength training will make you bulky. In my 20s, I'm 100% had this fear of like, I'm gonna get huge if I lift weights. That is very much wishful thinking potentially on our part. Women, we just don't have the testosterone. Okay, if you're born a woman or with female hormones, we literally don't have the testosterone levels to bulk up on accident. So if you look at women, like female bodybuilders, they work really, really hard to get there. It's a sport. So just like any high level sport, they're spending hours in there. Their nutrition is like styled in a very unique way. Things are at a pretty high level to get to that point. So it takes a lot of hours and intention to get there. And most of us, especially if we have other things that we do with our time, we're not going to accidentally get there. Oh, is it happening? Did I mute myself? Okay. This myth, This was another myth and something I experienced, but you need to be sore, racked, feel the burn, or sweaty for it to work. How many of us have believed or thought this? Yeah. I think especially as endurance athletes, one of our big indicators that something worked or something happened in a workout is we are sweaty. Like the reality of running, hiking, like mountain biking, skiing for long periods of time is you do get sweaty. The reality is like some soreness, some like sweatiness can be totally fine, but it doesn't mean that something's working. And in particular, soreness, like if you're super sore the next day, like can't sit on the toilet, can't walk up the stairs, it's potentially we're pushing past the stimulus that's necessary. Like for me, if I can't go back and work out 2 days later, it's too much. And I need to either reduce the volume or reduce the weight that I'm working at. Yeah, we don't need to be wrecked in particular because many of us have other things we want to be doing with our time besides working out. Like we want to be out playing and doing our thing. So being super sore isn't necessary. It's not necessarily helpful. So if you're finding that that's the case, back up on volume, back up on weight till you find a place where you're like, I can continue living my life while I'm strength training. Something like that. I don't know. Okay, I think this one's kind of like hopefully been debunked, but muscle turns to fat if you stop working out. That just doesn't really make sense on a physiological level. Like that's not what happens. I think this just comes from a fear of weight gain when people stop working out. But yeah, no, muscle just gets broken down when we don't use it. And then like fat storage is totally separate. So that is not a reason to not work out. And that's just not true. This one, has anyone heard of like lighter, like endurance athletes should be doing lighter weight, higher rep? Yeah. So it's not necessarily bad to do that. There is a lot of like the old research was like, yeah, endurance athletes should be doing like 20 reps of everything all the time. And that's fine if you have tons of time to spend in the gym. Okay. I would say most of us don't want to spend hours in the gym doing our thing. Like we're in there, we want to work, we want to get out. However, oh, that's not what I meant by that. Okay. However, yeah, heavyweight training is we're going to be way more efficient with our time, and we're going to build those really strong bones, tendons, muscles, which we need for like a longevity and a health standpoint. And then the other piece of this that I actually meant by this is like being lighter, like physically weighing less means you're going to be better at your sport.
I hear that a lot.
How many people have heard that? Like if you weigh less, you will do better. Yeah. And a big thing that happens here is putting on muscle is going to hinder performance. Ultimately, weight is not a predictor of health. There aren't a ton of studies saying like, oh, if you weigh this person like weighed 5 less pounds, they're going to perform better. That's not the case. The factors that 100% can impact your performance are you training? Are you training at the right intensity? Are you doing the appropriate recovery techniques? Like, are you taking rest days? Are you eating enough carbohydrates, proteins, and fats to recover? Yeah, so nutrition, are you hydrating? And then genetics do play a role in our performance. But I can't say there's been a ton of studies based on like weight predicting your performance. The things to focus on are not necessarily weight, but like these pieces. Are you doing the right things training wise?
I'm just gonna jump on here real quick. We
Yeah.
have a few questions in the Q&A thing. Feel free to just look at those and see if you want to answer them now or later, but just wanted to let you know that we have a couple questions in there.
Thank you. Oh, these are good questions, Katrina. Yeah, let's get into that. I have a few slides on these things. Yeah, let's get into those. Okay. Yeah, we'll get into that in a few minutes.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah. And then this myth, I will get injured lifting weights. Who has this fear? Yeah, it's a legit fear. It can happen. I've definitely injured myself lifting weights. Also important to remember, I've injured myself doing a lot of things. So is the risk higher? Not necessarily, especially if you get support with your form and technique.
Like you could trip in the bathroom.
You
break
could
your
trip in the
toe.
bathroom and break your toe earlier today, potentially. Yeah.
Totally.
So I just fell on my bike on Sunday. So it can happen a lot of ways. Okay, so what do we do? Katrina, you had some really good questions. How do we do this? So let's look. Oh, this is more places that we were from. Awesome. Let's look at this. How do you switch out stationary bike equipment and handheld stuff like dumbbells and kettlebells? That's all I've got. Okay, let's talk about that. How do you have tips for how to make strength training fun for people like me who get bored with gym/repetitive movements? Yeah. And is it better to focus on reps or weight? Awesome. Yes. So let's answer these questions. So is it better to focus on reps or weight? So I'm assuming you mean like, is it better to do more reps or heavier weight? That's a good question. The answer is it depends on what you're doing. So overall, we'll kind of talk about this in a minute, but is it like, we don't want to be doing more than like 10 reps for most strength movements. So if you're finding like, hey, I can do a ton of reps here, that would be an indicator, time to move up in weight. The other thing I would say is like, focus on like feeling confident in your movement patterns before you focus on weight or reps. Like just feel confident in how you're moving. So I hope that answers that question. How to make strength training fun for people like me who get bored with the gym, weights, repetitive movements. Yeah, I would change up your program like every 4 weeks. So stick with something for 4 weeks and then change up some movements.
Go with friends too.
Yeah,
If
go
you-
with friends.
If you can't find like a group in your local area, grab 2 to 3 other women, women identifying folks, and go to the gym and just be like each other's, what's the word, where you're like support.
You're like, yeah, there's word for it. Encouragers.
Like encouragers, and also the people that will keep you honest, like make sure you're going. I guess is
Yeah,
what I
yeah,
meant
like
to say.
accountability buddies.
Yeah,
That's the
thank
word.
you.
Yeah, like try and find some friends. And yeah, add in some variety for sure. How do you switch out stationary equipment for handheld stuff like dumbbells and kettlebells? That's all I've got. Awesome. Well, let's actually just go through some of the body weight type movements that I use. Feel free to ask more questions in the chat. Okay. So this is how we design a strength program. So a solid strength program is going to have these 7 movements incorporated across a week span. So it could be every workout includes all of these, or it could be you do 4 workouts and each, like every other workout includes like half of them. So over a week, we want to cover the 7 bases. This is how I break it down just to make it really simple so we know what we're doing. So I'm going to have Marissa demo some of these for us. And you are super welcome to follow along. I'm going to cue her. And you can follow along and learn a little bit more about some strength training. How's that 10?
Warm my muscles today.
Hell yeah. Okay, wait, where did the PowerPoint go? Oh, there it is. Okay. So feel free to follow along. So the first movement here is a squat. And squat. Oh, wait, it went away again. No, Rock. Oh, pause. Sorry. Technical difficulty. Wait, pull it up.
Yeah. Sorry, hold on 1 second, y'all.
Sweet. Awesome.
Is that
That's perfect.
okay?
Okay, so the first movement is the squat. Many of us have probably heard of the squat. So the first thing we have versus do is I want her feet to be about shoulder width apart, so right about there. I'm gonna have her start with her toes pointed forward, but you can always point your toes out. She's gonna think about engaging her core. When you think about engaging your core, I want you to think about if someone was gonna come up and like punch you in the stomach, what would you do? You're not gonna suck in, which is what I find a lot of people do, is they like suck in. You're gonna like maybe bear down is more of the term you might use. Okay, so you can practice that. From there, she's going to just bend her knees, squat down, and get as low as she can go, and keep her spine in neutral. The other thing I really like that she's doing is she's pushing her knees wide. Many of us have probably heard of the muscle, the glute med. It's weak on a lot of people. That's gonna really help get that muscle off. Great. Awesome. The next movement we're gonna do, so squat, some variations on that are lunges or step ups. Same movement pattern, we're hitting the same muscle groups. We're just adding some variety because, yeah, Katrina, like it can get boring doing the same thing over and over again for years on end, like add some variety. Second movement pattern is a hinge. So that's anything like a deadlift, the hip thrust, if you've ever heard of that. So deadlift, easiest to see from the side. Marissa has her feet directly under her hips. Do a great job there. And then same thing, she's gonna feel that core strength. And then she's just gonna bend at the hips, bending her knees and her hips. Boom, like she's gonna pick something up off the ground. And then she's just gonna stand up using her butt. And you're gonna squeeze your butt. Yeah, so bending at the hips and standing up. You can use any tool you like, you can relax. Beautiful, Marissa. Any tool you like, dumbbells, kettlebells, barbells, dogs, cats, anything's really gonna work for things like deadlift. So deadlift variations include, yeah, the hip thrust. I'm not gonna go over that. And then things like single leg versions of deadlift. So I love B stance deadlift, single leg deadlift, things like that.
Do you want to show them?
Do you want to show a single leg? Yeah, this is single leg, it's just one leg. It's a lot of balance. I love this for outdoor athletes, is something like this, just bending at the hips. Most of our sports require a good amount of balance. So this is a really good variation to always include at least once a week in your program. Yeah, bro. Horizontal press. So I'll pull this up again, but horizontal press is anything like a push-up, a bench press. That's mainly it. We're probably all pretty familiar with that movement. Next one is something like a shoulder press. So that's just pressing something up over your head. Boom. Yeah. And
Bar into the floor, something like,
yeah,
what do
you could do something like a landmine, which is a barbell that's used as a lever. Barbell press. You can press dumbbells over your head, kettlebells. Ways to add variety here are things like doing single arm version, doing it kneeling, things like that. Doing it sitting down to add some variety to these movements. Pulling, so anything like a row, and then things like pull-ups. Yeah, pull-ups, we don't have a pull-up bar in here.
But Casey does this great thing where she has, if you can't do a full pull-up with her full weight, you can use a band and stand on the band to help you, so you can do more reps with your body weight.
Exactly. Yeah, so if pull-ups are on your goal, that is, if you're like, I can only do one pull-up, or I can do 0 pull-ups, using bands. There are often pull-up assist machines, but if you don't have those available, there's so many ways that you can get stronger at doing pull-ups. Yeah, without those machines. And then the last set of movements is some sort of core strength and stability type movement. Things like planks we're probably familiar with. Things like the Russian twist. Have you done that one, Marissa? So she's gonna sit on the floor. Raise your hand if you cannot see this, but she's on the floor, she's rotating side to side, and that's just strengthening our rotational movements. Beautiful.
You do with weight too.
You can add weight. Those are the 7 main movements. So I'm going to pull up our slide again. And I like to break it down like that because it just makes it so much easier for us to make a plan instead of like throwing together, oh, what movement should I do today? I know if I cover those 7 movements, then I'm hitting a full body experience and I know I'm strengthening everything I need to. So those are the 7 movements. Hopefully that Katrina gave you some ideas into how to add some variety. See what questions we have in the chat. How important is upper body strength for sports like running? I love it. Shelly, that's a really good question. So upper body strength for sports like running, if you think about, horse running is primarily lower body sport, but if you think about the movement pattern, right? I'm obviously not going to run it, but there's so much arm swing that plays a huge role in how much we can drive forward in that sport. So while arms are not the primary mover in things like running, having strong upper body is going to allow you to continue to drive forward and strength. I think about when I run things like marathons, ultra marathons, my arms 100% get tired. Not like my legs do, but strengthening them is so important. Okay. So this is how I design a workout program. Y'all are going to get this video, but you can absolutely take some notes. But this is how I would start. This is how I would write my plan. Okay. So I'd start with some sort of workout or like warm up, which could be hopping on the bike, going for a little jog or walk for like 5 minutes. Just get the blood flowing. Okay. Then I'll do more specific warm up, which might include some dynamic stretching. I think of yoga flow type stuff, like a sun salutation is a really great full body warm up that's more specific to strength training and getting us open and blood flowing in more specific ways. Then I would do my plyometrics. Plyometrics are kind of like an extended warm up that get our muscles firing to do strong, powerful things. So I would go warm up, plyometrics, do some jumping, jump on a box, jump up in the air, jump side to side, anything where you're being intentional, powerful, and moving quickly. After that, I would hit my main lift. With the women I work with, this tends to look like heavy squat, heavy deadlift, heavy bench press type movement. Okay, so I'm focusing on one movement that is a multi-joint movement. It's not like a bicep curl. I'm starting with a squat, deadlift, bench press type movement. I'm putting the majority of my effort there. Okay, so I'm focusing there. And then I'm moving into my single leg, single joint movements, things like the lunge or that single leg deadlift that Marissa did. I'm doing bicep curls. I'm doing things with my smaller muscle groups that don't need as much energy and attention. I want to spend my max amount of energy and attention with my heaviest lifts that need that like attention. And then always finishing with some sort of mobility and stretching. Stretchy stretch. And then more specifically, sets and reps. So sets and reps, generally what I recommend people start with is anywhere from 2 to 4 sets of like 8 to 10 reps max. I wouldn't go beyond 10 reps of anything. You could even do less than 8, 6 if you're feeling pretty confident in a movement. And then rest period. One of the things that's really unusual for endurance athletes coming into strength training is resting in the middle of workout. I'm used to, when I first started, I was a runner and you just ran and you ran the whole time and you didn't really stop. Strength training, it's crucial to take those rest periods because in those rest periods, our body is recovering the energy pathways that it needs to go and put that same intensity in. So 90 seconds rest is like a perfect rest period for most things. And then how often? Twice a week is the minimum effective dose for us to get stronger, but ultimately do what you can. If that's once a week to start, amazing. And you can build on that over time. If you can do 3 days a week, you're going to get just a lot more out of it. But ultimately you have to look at what's available to you right now. Let's talk a little bit more about mobility, because I think this is a really big piece that a lot of people struggle with. Mobility, it's a great thing to do daily. Is that realistic? Like, do I do it daily? No, I don't. Where I really do it is attached to my strength days. So I'll start my strength workouts with some sort of mobility. I'll do a couple stretches. Say I'm doing squats. I'll start with doing pigeon pose and a quad stretch for 60 seconds each on each side before I get into my activity, or I'll do it directly after. Okay, that is realistically where it's going to happen. The other way we get mobility is by moving through our full range of motion when we're doing strength training. Okay, so if I can do my full range of motion squat, so Marissa went really deep in her squat. That means 1, she's strong in that position, she can get down there, and 2, she has the flexibility. So that's a really good indicator that that's something she can do for a long time. Yeah, girl. So mobility can be done by 1, just stretching, but 2, strengthening your body in the full range of motion. So not, if you can get into a full squat, amazing. You can do like a full deadlift, beautiful. So being strong in those positions. Oh, that's a good question, Karen. Do I talk about that? Okay, let's talk about that. So how do you work in your sports in between strength workouts? Great question. So how do I make it? Yeah, so depends on the season. So during mountain biking is my primary sport. It's where I want to spend the majority of my energy. So during mountain biking season, which is coming to an end, I'll plan on strength training twice a week. Okay, 3 times a week, not as much in the cards for me when it's more being outside season. How I'll do it is I will ride on the other day. So generally I'll strength train. Let's say Tuesday, Thursday are my strength training days. And then I'll ride like whatever is realistic, like the weekends. And then sometimes I can ride during the week. So things like that. Other ways I've seen people do it is they will strength train and like ride or ski, hike, run on days where it's an easy like endurance day, or it's an easy strength day. They'll combine those 2 days. I hope that answers that question. But ultimately I'll do it on a separate day, or if one of my workouts will be easy, if I'm having an easy run or an easy strength day, I'm happy to combine those on the same day. It's totally safe if you have enough experience in both. So if you're just starting, like, let's say you're just starting to train running and just starting strength training, I wouldn't start by combining them on the same day. I would separate those days. And then the last thing I would say is try to still include at least 1 rest day a week. Your body will thank you. What other questions? What are your fuel suggestions before and after strength training? Yeah, great question. So before a strength session, something higher carbohydrate with some protein. So higher carbohydrate, carbs are our primary fuel for all of our activities. That's going to give us the energy we need. Protein is going to help sustain that energy and like kind of regulate our blood sugar. So it's just going to make us feel a little bit better. Afterwards, I would fuel with the same thing, probably just a little bit higher protein, but I would still have some carbs. Yeah. What else? No,
Casey introduced me to the cottage cheese and crackers. I know
Cottage
that's
cheese
not
and crackers.
everybody's favorite thing to eat, but if you like cottage cheese, it's like perfect. Or like Greek yogurt
That's
with
so
granola or something.
Yeah, Greek yogurt, cottage cheese. What else? Apple and peanut butter can be good. Like it's not super high in protein, but it's a great pre-workout like snack that's going to be sustaining. I often like will eat a meal immediately after my workout. I'll eat like whatever I was going to eat that day, like chicken and sweet potatoes or whatever it is. Hell yeah, we love cottage cheese. We're big fans. Okay, sweet. What are the things in the gym? I like to demystify. There's a lot of things in the gym. So what are they? What are they called? We've probably heard some of these things, but maybe not. So what is this thing? If you want to drop in the chat, what is that thing called? What is that?
And if you don't know that.
If you don't know, it's totally fine. Yeah, that's the barbell. 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 Do we know what these are? Dumbbells. We know dumbbells. These are familiar. Okay. This one. I love this one. Free weights. Yeah. Free weights, dumbbells. Yeah. Free weights and dumbbells are kind of synonymous. Love it. Thanks, Andrea. And then this thingy. What's this guy holding? Hell yeah. Kettlebell. Yeah. KB. Sweet. Love it. Yeah. So barbells are great. Not everyone, I think, enjoys using barbells. What I love about barbells is you can load them. You can lift a lot of weight with them. Which is great for us as women because that means we can deposit more bone density, and just get really strong. So that is an advantage of barbells. Disadvantages of them is very limited motion, right? You have a straight bar, like really hard to move that in a bunch of directions. The free weights, dumbbells are great because they require you to work more on stability. As outdoor athletes, stability work is really key for everything we do. So I love dumbbells for that. Also, you can do a lot of single-sided stuff. So if anyone has any imbalances out there, we're going to be able to work on those a little bit better. Kettlebells, I love them. They are just like a dumbbell, but you can also do things like swing them and do a lot of power moves with them. And anytime we can incorporate power, the better. So those are the things in the gym. And then lastly, I want to cover dealing with gym anxiety. Raise your hand if you ever feel anxious in a gym. I do.
Me too.
Yeah.
Dudes be broing hard.
Dudes be broing hard in the gym. It can be. Ooh, that's a good question, Carrie. I'll get to that. It can be intimidating. Okay. I think these are the thoughts that people come up with. Like, these are the thoughts that come up and the feelings come up when we get to gym. It's like, people are judging me. Honestly, like if people are judging you, they aren't doing a workout. They're just looking at other people, but mostly we're judging ourselves ultimately. I'll look stupid. I mean, we all have our moments of looking stupid in the gym, but most people are not watching you. It's important to just remember that, like, most people are paying attention to themselves. If they're not working out, so they're not doing their thing in the gym. I don't know what I'm doing. That's real. Many people don't know what they're doing when they first start. I always say, just start with like 2 things that you know how to squat, you know how to do a push-up, start there and then build off that. And then a big one is like, women in general, we have a hard time taking up space. Okay. Especially in a male dominated environment. It's important to remember that if you're in a gym, you paid to be there, probably. And it's a public space. So you have every right to be there as everyone else in that space. So hopefully those are some things you can remember. Carrie asked, should we be lifting a heavy weight to fatigue in 8 to 10 reps in a set? Yeah, so good question. I would say sometimes. So with my clients, I don't ask them to lift to fatigue or failure every time they do a session. I generally like my clients to be able to do a couple more reps in each set. So what I asked of them is like, hey, choose a weight that you can do 8 reps at, but you also know you could do 3 more reps there. So what we'll know is that's going to be a fairly heavy weight, but they're not working to failure. And what that does is it reduces injury risk, but it's also enough of a stimulus, weight stimulus, for you to get stronger in a safe way over long periods of time. Yeah. Yeah, and just like general, like getting ready to start a program, have a plan, do your research beforehand, start small. You don't need to dive in to the deep end. Wear earplugs. I think I meant
Earbuds.
headphones,
Headphones.
and then put on your hype mix. Like put on your hype mix, whatever's gonna pump you up to be in there. Awesome, ladies. Yeah, I'd love to answer any questions, or if you had a question that I didn't quite answer in the way that you meant to ask it, I would love to yeah, answer any questions.
Also, Casey does do in-person and she does online training.
Yeah.
So if you're not in Bend, which most of you aren't, and you need a strength coach, she does online programming. So feel free to reach out to her too, because she's awesome. I know because I work with her.
Thanks, Marissa. Yeah, I am a strength and conditioning coach. I work with women in person and online. The best way to connect with me is through Instagram. Yeah. And that's my Instagram QR code. What questions do we have about strength training? Is there anything you wanted to know more information about? Anything that you didn't cover that you're curious about? Also, there's no stupid questions.
We're stupid answers. Well,
There's stupid answers. I could give a bad answer. It happens. Yeah.
But also, even though Casey is big on mountain biking, I'm also like skiing is my primary sport. I spent a lot of time going uphill. And so a lot of this strength training has really helped me. I have like some very particular injuries, and it's been really helpful for that, strengthening my back and my butt. So all these exercises, like they're pretty good cross training across the board. And obviously she can customize them too. But.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I work with a lot of skate skiers, a lot of backcountry folks, a lot of ultra marathoners, a lot of mountain bikers, climbers. I have a woman who plays hockey.
Oh, cool. That sounds dangerous.
Yeah, it's an intense sport. That's not like the risk I'm excited to take, but it's pretty badass.
Well,
Awesome.
we'll give it a few more, maybe a couple minutes, and then otherwise, oh wait, looks like we have another one. Sorry.
Yeah, Nicole, do you tend to categorize your strength training into upper body and lower body days, or just focus on full body strength days? Great question. If I am training 4 days a week, if I have time for that, I would train an upper body and lower body day. So I do like, let's say I train Monday through Thursday, strength training, I would do like maybe Monday's upper body, Tuesday lower, Wednesday upper, Thursday lower, because then I'm hitting each muscle group twice a week and I'm getting that minimum effective dose for each muscle group. However, like the reality for me is I am not training 4 days a week. I'm training anywhere from 2 to 3 days a week strength wise. So I focus on full body days. Then I know I'm hitting each muscle group at least twice a week. I'm going to get the minimum effective dose, and ultimately, like working out 3 days a week, you're gonna see improvements in strength.
I have a question for you too.
Yeah.
So like I'm gearing up for ski season right
Mhm.
now. So I'm sort of in between, like in shoulder season, haven't for a while.
Yeah.
Should I be lifting heavier or lighter before my season starts?
Yeah. So before the season, I would lift heavier. So when I'm in season, I tend to be in more of a maintenance phase. It depends on what I'm working on, but I tend to be like you know, when my skiers are in ski season, we're just maintaining the strength that they've built over the past like however many months. But then when we're in our shoulder season, or when you're like, oh, like I have a client, she's like, I like summer sports, but I'm really focused on skiing. We're gonna like lift heavier in the summer. And then in the winter, we're just like, you're just training or playing,
Yeah.
whatever you're doing. So
Okay.
preseason, lift heavier, off season heavier, in season, just maintain the strength that you build.
Okay.
Yeah. All right, cool. Thank you all so much for being here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming, Casey.
Yeah.
Feel free if you need to follow up with Casey, obviously all the info is up there. We can also share some of this in an email after the event.
Yeah.
I'll put in an email that goes out to everyone who's on the Eventbrite. So if you have any more questions, feel free to reach out to Casey. She's fantastic.
Thank you so much, ladies.
Yeah. Thanks so much, Casey.
Thank you, Liz.
Okay. I'm gonna stop the recording.